It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulsen. Announced last week for the Commanders that they will do a couple of joint practices with the Baltimore Ravens ahead of their preseason game. That's the Monday Night Football game, or I don't even know if it's on a Monday night, but it's the ESPN game.
Yeah,
of course, Logan. Yeah, of course, Logan and B. Mitch and Chick will be on the call.
We don't get to be on the call because it's a national.
I was going to say for the other two games.
Yes, for the other games.
Monday, 8 o'clock. I think that's August 21st off the top of my head. Thank you, Nick, for the note. But the joint practice is, Logan, were you a part of any of them during your career, and why are they so beneficial? Because I certainly have my theories, but I was never a part of one outside of watching Trent Williams nearly kill a guy against the Jets and making sure that I got out of the way before that happened.
Yeah, I hated joint practices as a player. I absolutely despised them because, we talked about how you're kind of always, or I was always operating in like this 8, 9, 10 range, even in off season. I was always stressed out, always worried about whether I was going to make the team. And here was this thing where they're adding like a game environment, and it's even more stressful because you don't always know the tempo, you don't always know what people are looking for. And so I think that was something that I hated. I absolutely hated it. But being on this side of the microphone, this side of the veil, evaluating guys, in the draft, evaluating free agents, things like that, this is an invaluable piece of seeing like where your team is at. And this used to be kind of what preseason was for, but people are so worried about guys getting hurt in preseason. Now they have these joint practices, which allow you to say, hey, we're going to work red zone concepts against another team. We're going to work third down concepts against another team, 2-minute, 4-minute, first and second down, and kind of see where our offense is at and see how our personnel line up against another team. And so I think that, even though as a player, I couldn't have hated anything more, as a coach, as a scout, as a front office person, these are really, really valuable pieces to kind of say, this is actually where our team is at. And if you think about the last couple of years, Kimes brought this up on his show. I've talked about this with him a couple of times just on the phone. And, one of the reasons they start slow is oftentimes guys are kind of in misrepresented roles. And I think a big part of that misrepresented role is that you didn't flush out your evaluation, right? And again, the preseason games are totally different. You get guys like the Rams, for example, who don't play any of their starters. So you're going to look great against those guys. But now in this joint practice context, like I get to practice against Lamar. I get to see what that looks like. I get to, go against a true starting right and left tackle of Baltimore and go against a very good defense and say, oh, okay, this is a problem. If they bring this 3-week pressure, like how do we handle that? And you can kind of get all that evaluation fleshed out. So I think it's an excellent move. It's going to be annoying for the players. It's probably going to be annoying for the coaches on some level because they got to go out to Baltimore and have a couple days away from the family. But from a team building, roster building standpoint, very, very valuable piece.
I think it's a pretty essential part of getting ready for a season. If I was a coach, I would try to do it literally every year.
Yep.
I would also try to do it early-ish because I think the biggest downside of joint practices is there's always fights. And part of that is going back to what we just kind of talked about, where at the end of, it's like 3 weeks of OTAs, 4 weeks of OTAs, you've just kept hitting the same dudes and you're kind of getting sick of practice. It's 100 degrees. And that's how it used to be down in Richmond. Obviously, it's only 95 here, although it's pretty swampy in Ashburn.
Yeah.
So like you're just beaten down and cranky, and you're sitting in meetings all day and 2-a-day practice. Even if it's one's a walkthrough, it's like, do I really want to be outside at 4 p.m. in the sun walking through in a bucket hat? Like, everything's annoying at that stage. And so you finally get a chance to hit someone that's not in another jersey. You finally get a chance to take that out a little bit, and inevitably someone says something, someone hits a little too hard, someone does something, and there's a massive brawl. And it happens almost every joint practice session. And so I would try to do it a little earlier if I was a coach. I'd also try to make sure the practice is structured so that it peaks towards the end and we don't have too much chirping and too many opportunities for things to go sideways early. And because what always happens is you wind up getting a day and a half of practice at best.
Right.
You end that practice and it's just like, all right, we're done because a bunch of dudes are ready to kill each other and there was just a big brawl and we can't possibly think about starting again. By the way, ask Mo what he did to a Gatorade machine next time you see him after the Jets joint practice.
What did he do to the Gatorade machine?
I think you should just ask Mo.
I'll ask Mo about when I see him.
Yeah, and see what he tells you, and then you can report back on the pod. But like that to me is the only concern. Outside of that, it's a chance to see different looks. It's a chance to see different schemes. It's a chance to evaluate your players against not your own, which can, sometimes it's like, wow, our defense looks great. It's like, oh crap, our defense actually wasn't great. Our offense was terrible. Right. That was kind of the 2019 team. And so you just have these thoughts of like, this is who we are, and you don't have a measuring stick. I don't understand why you wouldn't want that measuring stick every year as a nice reality check for you. And especially if you can come up with a system that ultimately limits the big downside, which is the brouhaha that inevitably happens at the end of every joint practice session.
Yeah, and I really think it's going to test your coach's leadership. I did 2 or 3 joint practices at my time, and I got in big, huge brawls in 2 of them, and then in the one where we had against New England, there was not even a hint of a fight. And I think because Bill Belichick was just governing that thing with an iron fist, and I think, like, no offense to Jay, I like Jay a lot, but when we had a joint practice against Houston, Bill O'Brien is the head coach for the other team, and he's like, it was on Hard Knocks, so each day it was like, oh, they beat us on the first day. That was Jay saying us. So then guys are like, okay, we got to go out and practice harder, and then we beat them on the second day, and then he's like, well, we're not having guys who are out here, Bill O'Brien, who are going to look like this on film. So guys don't want to get embarrassed, and all of a sudden it went from kind of this mutual helping each other out, which is a tough practice anyway, to now it is a game, and there is no regulation here from like officials or anything like that, and inevitably there's going to be a fight. So I do think understanding from the coach's standpoint, like, quite frankly, like early, late, like there's going to be a fight if the coaches aren't on the same page with the practice tempo, and they aren't fostering an environment where it's like, hey, that's nonsense. Like, for example, and against New England, like, Belichick got up in front of the team and was like, if anyone gets in a fight, you will not practice for the rest of the week. And that is a huge thing, especially for a guy like me who's trying to make the team. If I don't practice for the rest of the week, like,
You're getting cut.
I'm getting cut. Right. Exactly. So it's like, well, I better be smart about how I'm handling this. And when that guy pushes me after the whistle, like, I can't push him back because I got to be here for the next 5 days. So I think establishing those types of rules are even more important than like where it is in the training camp hierarchy. Because like you said, it's annoying, but joint practices are annoying regardless. And guys are just up. It's like this, and it's ultimate competitive guys in a very competitive environment. No one wants to look bad. So how do coaches handle it? How do position coaches handle it? How does team leadership handle it? And again, like, there's value there too, because it shows you what kind of leadership you have on your squad and what kind of team you are. But it's very hard not to get in a fight in these situations.
Hard Knocks last year, Dan Campbell and Frank Reich talked about that before their joint practices with the Colts and Lions. And they, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think they had anything. There was maybe like one shoving thing, but like there wasn't the giant fracas a la the Houston thing with, D-Hop and D-Hall and, all that happened. The Jets thing was a melee in 20, whatever that was. That was nuts.
Yeah.
And so, Jay was not, that was not one of Jay's strengths. That was for sure. But I do think someone like Ron and Harbaugh, I don't anticipate any problems with that crew.
We'll see. You got to handle it well. You got to handle it well. And, I could see it's tough because if one coach comes at it and says something different to their team, like, hey, we want to win the practice, and then the other coach comes back and says, oh, we lost the practice, like, just that wording, that relationship with the players, because no one wants to look bad. So you're going to come out and it's going to be a full speed practice. Someone's going to tackle someone to the ground. Someone's going to finish a block, and then everyone is heated because no one wants to look bad. And it's going to be like a 300 battle. You know what I mean? Everyone's just going to charge across the field at each other, and like it's Braveheart or something. So
yeah, I will say that 20 whatever it was, where against the Jets, like the brawl was fairly close. I mean, that one was scary because, like, remember how it was in Richmond, right? Where like you had the fans up on, kind of going up on the hill, and we as media sat kind of between the, on the inside of the rope between the field and the fans, and that thing started like right in front of us, and all of us were like, "Get the hell out of Dodge!" Which was also hilarious because then you had the PR staff yelling at us to not film it. and all the
really?
fans were allowed to film it. And I was just like, this is dumb. But like my first concern was, and I remember literally thinking this, Trent Williams is punching people. I need to get out of the way and make sure that I don't accidentally get hit here.
Yeah.
But getting out of the way, and then that with him was super scary because once we were out of the way, it just kept spilling over and like almost went into the stands / might have gone into the stands. And that's obviously incredibly scary.
Yeah.
And you know, from a PR perspective, not what you want to showcase. Hey, come watch our practice where we all get in a 300 style battle royale. But you know, hopefully it's successful. And like we said, there's a huge amount of upside to it.
But this is the drawback is that you get 1 day of practice or 1.5 days of practice. So.
Yeah, but I mean the good thing for the Commanders is they get those kind of enhanced practices after they missed 2 during OTAs. If we haven't mentioned that, I think we did mention it earlier in the show because of the over contact last year. Commanders stripped to some OTA practices, so getting those joint practices, they're not bonus practices, but they are probably better quality practices. And they feel even more important this year. All right, we will have more on OTAs and everything on Wednesday as they'll be getting ready to get started. So we will see you then. In the meantime, make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're watching or listening right now, especially if you're watching on YouTube where you like to consume YouTube content. Also, go subscribe to the Team 980's YouTube page. We stream the Hoffman Show there each and every day from 4 to 7 p.m. So, yeah, check that out. We'll see you on the radio. See you back here on the podcast later in the week. For Logan, I'm Craig. Thanks for listening or watching to Take Command. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart.